Hello, hello, test check 1, 2. How's it sounding? Hello, hello, test check 1, 2. How's it sounding? All right, I think it's good. There's a weird there's a weird feedback loop, but I think I fixed it. Hopefully. All right, I think I got it taken care of. Should be good now. Hello and welcome to another Wednesday feedback stream. My name is Zaak Kerstetter, and this is what we do here on Wednesdays is we're going to be talking about your tracks, and you guys are going to send me stuff you're working on, and I'm going to take a listen to it, and we're all going to talk about it together as a team. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link in the chat, and I'm going to pin it up to the top of the chat. That way, if you have a track you would like to send me, click on that link. It'll take you to the spreadsheet, put your song in the spreadsheet, and I will listen to them in the order that I receive them. So a couple general basic rules for sending in tracks and feedback and all that kind of stuff. I do this at the start of every feedback stream, but I feel like it's important information. So first off, ideally original tracks only, no remixes, partially for copyright. YouTube's really strict about the copyright stuff, and I don't have to deal with it. And also because if you're remixing a song I don't know, it's hard to tell like what's the remix and what's original, and it just makes it more complicated. So ideally original tracks. On top of that, also ideally works in progress, and that way after you get your feedback, you can go back and actually like fix and change anything that you want to be changing. This is not like a hard, fast rule. If you don't have any works in progress and you only have something you finished like last week, that's totally fine. It's not a big deal. But I think it's more interesting to hear tracks while you're in the process of making them. Another thing I also like to point out is that all experience levels are welcome. So any stop music is welcome. So if this is your first track or your 100th track, it doesn't matter. And anything is welcome here. What's up, Gauntlet? How you doing? So another kind of general rule or guideline for feedback is that it's good, or so if you're submitting a song for feedback, it is highly encouraged that you also give feedback yourself. So if you you can let other people know what you're thinking about their tracks. It helps make the whole thing feel more community driven, and we can all learn from each other and kind of grow together as a group. In terms of like feedback, it's good or I liked it doesn't really count unless you followed up with why. So like, why was it good? Why do you like, what stuck out as being particularly good? If this was your track, what would you do to change it or fix it or whatever? Whatever kind of feedback you can give is fantastic and highly encouraged. What's up, Julio? How you doing? Other than that, songs will be reviewed in a first come, first served basis. So I'm just going to go in top to bottom through the spreadsheet. If you have more than one song that you'd like to share, please wait till the end of the stream to send me the second song. Normally, I have time to get through multiple songs per person, but just to make sure everybody gets a fair chance to share a track, one song at a time until the end of the stream. On top of that, this video, as with all of the streams on the channel, get posted to the playlist page of the channel. So if you got some feedback on a track and you want to go back and review that feedback at a later date, you are always welcome to do that. On top of that, if you would like to get feedback on a track and you can't make it live to the Wednesday afternoon feedback stream, you can always click on that same link for the spreadsheet. It's always the same spreadsheet, and put a link in early, and then I will review it on stream, and then you can watch the stream whenever you want. So all those are totally doable. Excuse me. Lastly, all feedback is free. This is something I do for fun because I really enjoy doing it, and it's cool to hear what everybody is working on. However, if you would like to help support the channel, you can hit the like button right now on the stream. You can subscribe if you're not subscribed. You can tell your friends about the channel. I'm trying to like get some more of the videos out there into the world and kind of grow it. And then if you want to help support the channel, you can check out the Patreon, which gets you access to extra streams. You can also do super chats in the YouTube chat, and that's also a cool way to help me keep doing what I'm doing. What's up, Ringa? How you doing? So I think that's all of the regular old stuff, all the intro stuff. So we're going to dive right into it. We already got a couple tracks in the spreadsheet, so let's go ahead and get started. So this is a track from last week from Velto. So I'm not sure, Velto, if you're in chat yet or not. I mentioned I'd be reviewing this one first, so hopefully you're watching the video at some other later time. And as always with the first track of the stream, I'm going to be doing a little sound checking, so let me know if it sounds weird, too quiet, too loud, anything like that. Nice. Chat, what do you think about this track? Is it working for you? Hey, Thomas, how you doing? So overall, I think this track sounds really good to me. I think especially the drop sections, the sound design and the bass sounds nice and rich and full. Kick sounds really solid. I think you went pretty heavy on the mastering, but I think it kind of works, and I think it has a lot of power to it. However, there's a couple minor things, tweaks here and there, especially during the intro and the break section that I think are worth taking a look at. But overall, I think it's sounding pretty solid. So first off, the intro. The clap in the intro, to me, it doesn't quite fit. It's this very kind of noisy clap sound. It's like almost like an electronic clap. It is an electronic clap. And I think it doesn't contrast well with the kind of orchestral nature of the other things that are happening there. So I think maybe a slightly different sound that's not exactly that clap. It could still be a clap, maybe like a more gentle clap or a more realistic human clap could be really nice. It also comes in pretty loud, which I think is okay, but I would also maybe turn down a tiny bit. I really like your percussion pattern in the beginning, though, in the intro. I think it sounds really nice. Other than that, I like the strings. I like what you have going on here. They sound like synthetic strings, though. They sound like they're like Contact or some kind of like sampled instrument for the strings. And it's really hard to make fake strings sound like real strings. The two of the things I found to help with that is, number one, lots of layering of different kinds of string sounds together that'll make it sound less synthetic. The other thing you can do is use reverb to help kind of mask those strings a bit to make them sound a little bit more farther away, and that can help kind of like pretend that they're not fake strings. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the intro. I think a bit more of a lead in before this kind of like first little A section before the drop comes in could be nice. Like maybe a longer filter sweep or something to let the audience know farther ahead that kick's about to come in. And I think the kick comes in a little bit too heavy. Yeah, in this section, the kick is too loud and the clap is too quiet, I feel like. And maybe a little bit more mid-range on your distorted guitar kind of sound here, I think would be kind of cool. But yeah, those are my thoughts in the intro and kind of like the A section. And then once you get into the drop, I really only have one or two minor complaints here. First complaint is, yet again, the clap is too quiet. I can hear it, but only just barely. It's getting lost in the mix here a lot, so I would turn that up a bit. The other thing that I have feedback on, and this is true for both of your drops, is that you have these really nice textural fills. You have these like cool, interesting background noisy sounds, and it goes back and forth between two of them. There's one there, one there. One's like this weird kind of squelchy sound, and the other's like a weird kind of like shaker bell sound. And you go back and forth between the two, which I love those sounds. I think they're fantastic. But that's all they do is just go back and forth between the two. I think it'd be nice to have, instead of 2 sounds, maybe 4 sounds, maybe 8 sounds, maybe just a bunch of different kinds of sounds. And you kind of rotate between those different sounds instead of just going back and forth between the exact same 2 textural sounds, because it does get a bit repetitive. But I like the sounds that are already there. Other than that, I think the drop's great. The break section here works pretty good. This section I think sounds great too. I think that's a pretty good like build into the next drop. And then my only issue with the second drop is that it sounds more or less exactly the same as the first drop. So it'd be cool if there's a new layer that came in there, something that like switched a little different rhythmically, something changed a bit. Maybe there is, but maybe it just feels a little too subtle to me. But yeah, that's kind of my feedback there. A lot of it's just like little tiny minor mix things and just dialing things in a tiny bit. But I think overall, I think it sounds really good. And like I said, I really do like the sound of the bass. I like the grittiness of it. I like the distortion. Sounds pretty awesome. Chat, any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Let us know. Sweet. Next up, we got a track from Lori. All right, so Lori, I think, is not gonna be able to be here. I think they mentioned they were gonna upload the track, and then I checked the track and it's not working. Usually what this means is that the track is set to private, and instead of giving me the private link, you gave me the just, what's it called? URL for the actual track. So unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to listen to it today unless Lori, you end up showing up later. So this one might have to wait till next week, unfortunately. or they just changed the link or uploaded a new one or something like that. That's also possible. Sweet. So next up, we got Julio. And if anybody is just joining us and they would like to send a track, you can click on the link that is pinned up at the top of the chat, and that'll take you to a spreadsheet. And that's where you put your track. And that's how I will listen to it. Nice. What's up, After Party? How you doing? So yeah, really nice work here. I feel like this is I'm hearing progression in terms of your skills and your techniques that you're using, Julio. This definitely feels like the most sonically cohesive of the tracks that you've sent me. It feels like the arrangement makes sense. For the most part, the sounds fit together really nicely. For the most part, the sound design is generally pretty solid, with a couple minor exceptions here and there. But I felt like the whole thing, it felt like it made sense as you get from one section to the next, which is really awesome. So a couple minor things. I feel like, like I said, I like the ideas here, but I think this track could probably be about 2.5, maybe 3 minutes long, and I think it will benefit greatly from that. So I think a little bit shorter, tighten up the arrangement a little bit. I did feel like the section basically from like halfway through to right at the end was pretty strong, and definitely that to me would be like the main section I would focus on. Cool, awesome, Thomas. I will check that out once I get down there. So in terms of what you can do to improve here, I feel like overall the drums sound pretty good. Your clap sounds a little bit dry, so a tiny bit of reverb and a tiny bit of compression on that will go a long way, I think. This sound here, the like bump, 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 bump sound, like I guess you could kind of consider that like a bass sound. I think it's cool, but I think in terms of sound design, it could maybe sound a little cooler, maybe layer it up a little bit, maybe add some effects to it. Like it works. Rhythmically, I really like it. Rhythmically, it's perfect. But in terms of the actual sound itself, it's not like the most inspiring sound. And it also is very consistent throughout the entire arrangement. Like, it doesn't happen right here. I guess you get rid of it towards the end there. But it just goes on for a long time. So maybe explore that sound a little bit more. I would maybe tone back the delay on the piano a tiny bit. I like that it's there, but you could maybe have a little bit less dry wet on that, and maybe a tiny bit less feedback. This part was actually kind of cool. This part reminds me kind of like of like a quartet song or something like that. Almost kind of like old school IDM kind of vibes from this part. Like a square pusher song almost. Yeah, and then I think once you get to this part, once you get like 1 minute and 15 seconds in, then I feel like the song really starts to take off. I do feel like this section is a bit long here, and this is probably where I would shorten it up if you're going to shorten up anywhere. Once we get into it, though, I like how you're using multiple different melodic sounds and you're kind of jumping back and forth between them and layering them differently. I think that's great. I do like, it sounds like you have like an electric piano here. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. That sound. So if you want to submit me a track, click on the link that is pinned up at the top of the chat, and I will get to them in the order that I received them. So there's this really simple electric piano melody. I think it's okay. I think the electric piano to me sounds a little bit, it doesn't sound as interesting as some of the other sounds. So I would maybe keep the notes, but maybe swap out that electric piano sound for maybe a different instrument, maybe like a guitar or a different synth kind of sound. This one, that one. But I do like the plucky synth you have here. I think that to me seems also like a pretty big upgrade in terms of some of your sound design. So that's what I thought for the most part. And then you kind of like swap it up at the very end here, which I thought was really interesting. And go for this pitchy thing, which I'm not totally opposed to. I think this section needs a little bit more work to be fully fleshed out, but I think it'd be kind of cool if this section, instead of being right at the end, you put somewhere in the middle. And that could be kind of a cool reset, and then you kind of bring it back to doing what it was. That's totally up to you. That's more like a personal preference thing than anything else, but I did think this section was cool. It needs a bit more work, a little bit more sound design, maybe a little bit more production stuff going on here, but I thought this part was cool. Which I think could work. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Chat, any other thoughts, ideas, questions, comments? Let's hear them in the chat. But I appreciate you. I feel like Julio, every week you've been coming in with tracks, which is great, which means you've been like working on stuff really consistently, which is awesome. So big props for that. So next up, we got a track from Gantyo, who we haven't heard from in a little bit, but I'm stoked to hear what you've been working on. I'm also going to get ready to turn this down because Gantyo's tracks are usually much louder than everybody else's. Nice. That was really good. Honestly, not a whole lot of critical feedback here. A couple of minor comments here and there, but I think overall, as always, mix sounds super clean, master sounds really solid. For the most part, the sound design was really on point. The drums were like really dialed in. It just like super on point in terms of a lot of the production stuff. I also think that the use of the vocals was really tasteful. I think a lot of the times in a lot of different kinds of house music, the vocals really take over everything and it becomes too much. And so I like that the vocals didn't come in till halfway and then they fit in nicely and they didn't like take over the whole song. They like supported what was already there, which I think was a really nice way to use vocals in this style of music. So in terms of my feedback, I feel like I'm going to listen to the intro one more time, but I feel like the intro was a little bit too chaotic for me. There's a lot of stuff going on, but that might have just been because I was also dealing with stream stuff. So I'm going to listen to it one more time. I guess it's just good. I think the volume on some of the sounds that are bouncing around, that are panning back and forth, could be a little bit quieter, and I wouldn't mind that. I think they're just good. It's just a little bit less volume in some of those synths. That's the bouncing ones. All right, and then we need to talk about this sound here. This percussive sound that's coming in here that's throughout a bunch of the track. The timing on that sound is a little bit weird, and I kind of like it. I mean, I think it's interesting and unique, and it throws me off in a way that I think is really fascinating. And so I actually think it's really cool. But I'm trying to figure out like what it is about this timing that like it's quantized onto something weird, and I actually kind of love it, even though it kind of like it makes you really think about what's happening as opposed to like having it be exactly on time. So I'm super curious what your process is with that sound, that one kind of, you know, super late percussive sound. Because I think it's super weird. And I think it's actually brilliant. Tyler, I would prefer if I can just stream it online. So if it's on YouTube or SoundCloud or Google Drive or whatever, that makes it easier for me than having to do it off Spotify. I'm not sure if anything is missing, really. I do kind of agree that that main synth line, it does sound a little bit dry. I think maybe what it's missing is another layer of that sound, and that way that'll kind of like spice it up, and that'll, I think, work really well. But yeah, other than that, like I said, I think the break section works great. I think the vocals fit in with everything else. I think the second section, it'd be cool if you had like one more kind of like dirty, growly kind of bass sound, like a bandpass filter and a saw wave that kind of like sweeps up and down to give it a little bit more motion and texture in there. That could be kind of cool. Something to gram it up a little bit more towards the end that I think will counterbalance with the pretty airy vocals. I think could be really nice. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling there. There's like really not too much feedback I have in terms of like critical stuff. I think you have a lot of really interesting things going on. I think the mix could be tweaked a tiny bit and a little bit more layering on some of those synths. But other than that, I'm feeling really good about this track. I think it sounds really dope. Chat, what do you think? Any other questions, comments, ideas, things that you want to hear on this track? What do you like? What didn't you like? Let us know. Also, if you are enjoying the stream, feel free to hit the like button or subscribe if you are new around here. Next up, we got a track from Thomas. Nice guy. Yeah, I'm stoked to hear the new stuff you're working on. Yeah, Tyler, I do all kinds of stuff in Ableton, but any style, whatever. Audio Zone It, literally any genre. In fact, I encourage you guys to, submit whatever genre you're into, whatever you're doing. All styles are welcome here. I like the bongos. Yeah, I kind of feel like Thomas and Gauntlet, you guys have kind of similar styles a little bit. Nice. I think overall it sounds really good. It sounds like you have a really solid understanding of the style you're going for. This very kind of like synth heavy, housey kind of thing. I have a few pieces of feedback here and there, some mixed stuff, some sound design stuff, but it seems like overall you got like a pretty good like core concept for a track here. So starting off in the intro, originally I thought the kick was too quiet in the intro, but now after listening to it again, I think it's actually fine. I think your hat might be a tiny bit too loud. I also think the intro could be a tiny bit shorter. I think that we're about a minute in and like we're just now getting to the juicy part. All right, so this is like your main kind of like aggressive synthy bass part, and I think overall it's pretty good. It definitely does feel a little bit thin. So I think a couple of things I'll do off the top of my head. A bit more unison on there, I think could go a long way. In fact, maybe even a lot of unison, depending on what you want to go for here. Also layer it up with something in a higher octave. So, just take another synth or another oscillator on the same synth, pitch it up an octave, pick a different waveform, and then kind of see if that helps kind of widen out your frequency range a little bit. On top of that, if we're up to me, a hair of distortion. I don't know if you're using Ableton Live or not, but something like pedal is fantastic on these kind of synth sounds. It's really easy to use and just gives it that extra little bit of bite without being too aggressive, and it can be fantastic. The last thing I'll really consider is maybe going a bit more aggressive with the sidechain on the bassy part, and I think that'll help give it a little bit more kind of that like bouncy texture, which I think would be really nice. Tyler, so if you put your song in the spreadsheet that's pinned up at the top of the chat, that's how we are doing all the songs. Yeah, so like I said, a little bit of unison. If you are not feeling the unison, you could also try a little bit of chorus, can also go a long way in this kind of sound. A little distortion, a little more sidechain. Which parts of what, Thomas? All right, and then we get into like the main section here. And I think the big thing that is really distracting for me is some of your percussive elements here, your hats in particular, you have these like really fast 16th note hi-hats. They sound a bit overly quantized. So if it were up to me, on the same synth part, that main kind of like saw wavy synth part, a little more sidechain on that, I think would go a long way. So maybe a little bit of swing onto those hi-hats could go a long way. Sometimes I'll just manually move the hi-hats off time a tiny bit, and that can go a long way. Also, a little bit of velocity variation on the hats, I think will also go a long way. And I think that'll spice it up. In fact, one of the things I've been doing quite a bit recently when it comes to hats is have like 2 or 3 slightly different hats and just rotate between the different hats, and that just makes it feel so much better, especially for faster hats like this. The clap sounds a little dry, a little bit of reverb on that, I think will go a long way. I like a lot of the other synthy stuff you have going on. You have all these cool like melodies and things going on that I think are working really well. I like the bongos a lot. I think the bongo section could maybe use one extra sound, maybe like a pad sound or something kind of atmospheric in the background. Maybe like a textural sound effect kind of sound could go a long way here. But I love to just hard reset to bongos. Great idea. Yeah, and I think the same thing kind of applies for the feedback I had for like the first drop here in terms of the mix and the drums and some of the sound design. But I think I'm digging the second half here. Yeah, same thing here. I think if you added maybe another layer of percussion, maybe like some shakers, something to also like, I don't know, when I think about like a 4 on the floor drum beat, I say this all the time when I'm giving feedback, so you've already heard this, let me know. But it's all about that percussion because it's always the same drum beat, right? It's always that just 4 on the floor rhythm. So what you're putting in between the 4 on the floor is really how a lot of people are going to dance to it, all those little bits and pieces. So don't forget to make those parts really interesting. And so I think you have a little bit of room here to play with your percussive layers and really dive into that. But yeah, other than that, I'm really kind of digging it. I think if you wanted to maybe toss a couple little vocal samples on here, a little like oohs and ahs with like a bunch of effects like reverb and delay on them, I wouldn't mind that. I think that would give it help give the song a bit more personality, but not necessary if you're not into vocal chops and things like that. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling there. Overall, it's sounding really good. An example of percussion stuff you want to, in terms of like a song that has that, or what I would do for the percussion? Yeah, overall, it sounded really solid. Sounds like well on its way to being, this track is like 90% done. I don't have any examples off my head. I mean, anytime I think of like any house song that I really like, I just think about like what separates that house song from like a okay house song is it's all about those little tiny details in the percussion. I mean, one thing you could do is just like go to your sample library and just grab a bunch of like shaker samples, like shaker loops where the timing isn't perfect, and that little bit of like imperfection in the timing is super, super valuable, I think. But yeah, really solid work, and I appreciate you send it in. All right, next up we got a track from King KY. Yeah, no worries, Thomas. Anytime. What's up, Josh? How you doing? Nice. This is a really dope track that I think suffers from a couple minor issues, but I think in terms of the like overall concept of this track, the beat sounds dope, the piano part sounds dope, just has this really dark and groovy vibe. Like rhythmically, it's doing a lot of really cool stuff. I'm a big fan so far. But I think that there's one major thing and maybe one minor thing that I think are holding this back. The major thing is that the mix feels a little bit off here. There's a few things that need to be much louder and a few things that could be a tiny bit quieter. And I think if you are able to go back in and dial that in a bit, I think this track is just going to sound huge and it's going to sound awesome on speakers. So I think the big thing to me is you have this big kind of like boomy 808 that I think needs to be a bit louder. I think it just right now it sounds a little bit low in the mix. And I think the kick, the like actual impact of the kick needs to go up with it just a tiny bit. And I think that'll help the whole thing feel a lot bigger. Your snare sounds a little bit thin, so maybe also bring that up in volume. I would also layer that snare up a bit with a different one, and I think that'll help make it feel a little bit more rich. Right now it's like, it's okay, but I think the snare could use a little bit of love there. And then you have this kind of like shrill, kind of saw wave, pitch bendy synth part. That right there, and it comes in various times. That one's way too quiet. So turn that up pretty significantly because it's such a cool sound. It gives so much tone and character to this track that I think that should be more of a major feature. And right now it just feels like the pianos are just way louder than everything else. Love those little like negative space, it's fantastic. And like that little descending sounds really cool. There's also another sound here in the background. I don't know how to describe it. It sounds kind of like little like plucky water droplets or something like that. That also feels a little bit too quiet. I think you get a little bit more, a little bit louder with a lot of those more kind of like textural sounds that are in there. This part's cool. Yeah, those are the big things. If you dial in that mix, it's going to make a world of difference on this track, and it's just going to sound huge, and it's going to sound dope. Other than that, the other thing that's holding it back is that as of right now, besides a few of the little fills and some of the break sections and some of the negative space sections, the track doesn't really go anywhere, which makes me assume that you are using this as a way to, you're going to like have somebody rap on top of it. That's what it sounds like. If that's the case, the arrangement's fine. Once you get vocals on there, that'll carry the arrangement. What's up, Jeremy? How you doing? If you are planning on leaving it as an instrumental, then I do think it needs to change up a little bit more. I think something more needs to happen here because it's kind of just like the same kind of it's like the same really cool loop that has little tiny breaks in it the whole way through. But like I said, if you're gonna put somebody rapping on this, don't stress about it. It should be fine. And then you'll have your like, you know, verse, chorus, whatever. Should be fine. But yeah, I think in terms of like vibe and aesthetic, I'm a big fan of this. It just needs some love on the mix, and I think that'll make a world of difference for you. I also really like the outro. I think this outro is really solid too. Sometimes the like thunder sound can be a little cliche, but it works really well with these sounds. I also think if you wanted to put in like a synth solo of this synth sound, where'd it go? That synth part, if you wanted to go more crazy with that and do more variations on that and maybe even do a little solo with it, I would be all in favor of that. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking there. Chat, any other questions, comments, ideas, thoughts? Let us know. And if anybody is just joining us and would like to submit a track, you can click on the link that is pinned up at the top of the chat, and then we'll get to it in the order that we received them. Is this you on the vocals? Okay, so this is two-piece band, or I guess band. Nice. I feel like overall, in terms of vibe, is really cool. It has almost kind of reminds me of like a James Bond theme song where they have like this big, almost kind of like big vocalist with a lot of cool instrumentation stuff going on. I think the synth work is pretty solid. I think the whole thing works together really well. However, there is something going on with your mix that it feels very off to me. Specifically when it comes to the vocals and the drums and the vocal processing and the drum processing. Both of those two sounds, which I feel like should make up a major portion of what I'm hearing in this track, feel very, very far away. It also feels like there's a bit of low end missing here. So I'm not sure if you've EQ'd something kind of weird, but you're not getting a whole lot in your low end with a couple exceptions. Before we dive into that stuff, I do feel like I thought the intro was really solid. Like this part's super cool. I almost felt like it was going to go into like a hip hop beat for the first like 30 seconds. And then you come in with this kind of plucky bass line. I think the sound design on this plucky bass line could be a little bit better. Right now, it sounds like it's really, really low frequency and we're not really getting a lot out of it. So I would play with that sound a little bit. I think in terms of like what it's doing, having a plucky bass there is good, but that particular plucky bass, it's not doing it for me. So that's my only issue with the intro. And then we get into this section here, and especially after hearing the levels of all the sounds in the first minute of the song, the vocals sound way too quiet, and so do the drums. So you're gonna need to crank the volume on both. You're also probably gonna do a significant amount of processing here to really make them stick out of the mix a bit more. Namely things like compression. For your vocalist, probably a little bit of reverb and a lot of compression on your vocalist, I think will make her voice sound massive, because her voice is fantastic. I like her voice a lot, but right now it sounds very dry and it sounds very far away. And I think that itself is really limiting the potential of this song. Yeah, I think, the more layers you have, the harder it is to mix stuff. But I think that the big thing to me is just getting the levels of the vocals and getting the levels of the drums way up. Because right now, like, I can barely hear your kick at all. Like, if I'm listening for it, I can tell it's there, but it's very much in the background. And they're not impactful at all, right? And I think you really need these drums to hit a lot harder. So compressors and volume control are definitely going to be your friend there. It sounds like she has like a decent amount of reverb on there already, so maybe not too much more than that, but definitely more volume and definitely more compression on specifically those two sounds. The rest of the sounds are more or less where you want them to be, but they're the vocals like... Like you have this kind of like arpeggiated synth part there that I think is more or less the right volume, but it's louder than the vocals and it's louder than the drums right there. So that's my big issue. If you fix that, that's going to fix like 90% of your problems in life. So get those two to be much louder. And then other than that, got a little topple solo. Yeah, you can hear as you transition from this break section back into the verse. Like this part's cool. And we go into this next section, and the main sections, the verses here, they sound quieter than the section before it, which is an issue. But yeah, that's my big feedback here. Like I said, stylistically, I like what you're going for. It has this very kind of like cyberpunk meets Middle East, like meets James Bond kind of style, which I think is dope. I like a lot of your synth work, with the exception of that one really low, plucky bass sound. And just overall, the vibe I think is really solid. But crank up the volume on the vocals, crank up the volume on the drums, process them a little bit, and I think that will put you well in the right direction. Yeah, Chat, any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Did you do most of that synth work with hardware synths? You said you got an MS-20 and a Mini Moog. All right, next up, we got a track from Wormhead. Audio's in it. It'll be easier to mix in Reason for sure. Nice. That's pretty dope. Overall, I think it sounds really good. I think that if it were up to me, there were a few minor changes I would make in terms of the mix, but I think stylistically, it sounded really awesome. I think the vocals sound really good. I kind of like that the vocals are, they have this very kind of atmospheric quality to them, which I think kind of like leans into some of like the grungy and distortedness of the rest of the track. So just going through it little by little, when it first started, it sounds a lot like Blue Oyster Cult. I forget the name of that song. They're like most famous song. But I think it's a cool riff. All right, so I feel like up until the last section of the song, the snare sounds a little bit loud to me in the mix. It just sounds louder than all the other drums, and I feel like if it were up to me, I would tone that snare down a tiny bit. Yeah, don't fear the reverb. I think the rest of the drums sound great, the guitars sound great. I also think if it were up to me, I think the vocals would be a tiny bit louder. I think because they have this atmospheric quality to them. I think I want them to like stand above the guitars and the mix a little bit more. Overall, it's not too much of an issue, but I would purposely make them a little bit louder. And then there's a few parts where you add in a little bit of like extra noise in there, which I think was fantastic, but they're a little bit quiet to me. Yeah, there's some like little like radio chatter talking. Some of those sound effects I think are really cool. I would make them a little louder. I think in these sections here, when you're doing the more kind of like chorus kind of thing, I think the snare is the right volume. But in the other sections, the snare is too loud. This part's fantastic. I love this part. All right, then you have like a little bit of extra guitar stuff going on here. During this section, I would bring out that guitar a little bit more because I think it's really cool. And then there's like a different set of guitar craziness going on at the very end. There's some like weird guitar shredding in the background here that's just like barely audible. I would make that a little bit louder. I think that it sounds really cool. But yeah, it's all really, really minor stuff. I think for the most part, aesthetically it sounds great. I think the vocals sound really solid. It has this nice kind of raw, natural, grungy, little distorted, like you can't exactly always tell what they're saying kind of thing, which I think like it all fits together in the picture really nicely. It's just I would change volumes on a couple of things, you know, a couple of things up and down a little bit in the mix there. But I think since this is the song from the official video, it's probably already done and released, and you're probably not going to go back in there, which is totally fine. But yeah, I'm digging it. We don't get a lot of this style music on the channel, so I'm glad to hear it. Chat, you got any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? If this is your track, what do you do to it? I honestly think, I know it's kind of like a radio-friendly length right now, but I think it could be longer. I think if you wanted to, like, especially if you wanted to like keep getting weirder and more noisy with it, I wouldn't mind it a little bit longer. I appreciate, first off, I appreciate everybody coming by and sending me tracks today. I've gotten some really awesome, cool tracks. And again, I love it when I get a lot of diversity in terms of styles and genres. Yeah, Jeremy, all the stuff that I mentioned though is like very minor. It's like, only because I'm like really paying close attention and to try to pick things out when I notice stuff like that. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. All right, next up we got a track from After Party. Nice. I feel like the auto tune there was an interesting choice, and I think I like it. I think auto tune's working for me. Normally, I'm fairly anti auto tune, but I think in this situation, uh, it kind of it works with the kind of dreamy quality of the rest of the track. So I'm in favor of it. Uh, do you use that just using the vocoder in Ableton? Because that's pretty impressive. Because the vocoder can be a pain to make it sound good at all. But in terms of what you got going on here, I'm digging it quite a bit. I feel like the big thing that to me was just driving me crazy was your snare or your clap snap was way too loud. So turn that thing way too down. And then I think a lot of the melodic elements can also go up in volume. I think that they were kind of getting left behind, and I think that those are going to complement the vocals really well. Let me see if there's anything else. The intro is very like Twin Peaks, which I thought was kind of cool. It's very like 80s Yamaha DX7 synth style. I don't know. Those vocals are working for me. I'm in favor of what you got going on right now. Like if you wanted to layer them up with like some harmonizations, I think that'd sound dope. Yeah, bring out those plucks a little bit more. I also feel like the really heavy reverb aesthetic is working for what the song is trying to do. I think you might need to tone back a few of those reverbs just a little bit, just so you can hear everything a little better. Yeah, maybe a tiny bit less on the pads as well. But I don't know. It's kind of a cool little, like, I like that it's short and sweet. I like that it's not like super complex in terms of the arrangement. I think it's kind of working for me. Yeah, the bass I feel like I wouldn't stress too much about because this is not like a very bass-centric track. So as long as a lot of the other parts are working, as long as the vocals and the melodies are and the pads are all kind of working together, I wouldn't stress too much about having lots of variation in the bass line. Sweet. Chat, any other thoughts, comments, questions, ideas? Let's hear them. Also, at this point, I'd like to point out that this is the last track in the spreadsheet. So if you are either just joining us or you've been hanging out for a little bit and you have not yet sent in a track, now would be a good time to toss a track in there. All right, so next up we got a track from Monty G. Let's switch up the vibe a little bit.
I was locked away like a prey. You had your way, and I was so afraid. I didn't have a say. Now I wanna run away. DNA to be a runaway. I wanna run away. Run away. I wanna run away. Run away. I wanna run away. I'ma run away. I'ma run away. I wanna run away. I wanna run away. I'ma run away. It's in my DNA to be a runaway. To be a runaway. To be a runaway.
Damn, bro. That is a sick track. Really nice work, Monty. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think drum and bass is probably the most technically difficult electronic music genre to produce. And this is a really solid track. If I was the drum and bass DJ, which I'm not, but if I was, I would totally put this in a set. Really nice work on the vocals. I saw in the spreadsheet you said that the vocals are you, which is fantastic. The vocal processing's great. I love how it the vocals are shifting and moving in really interesting ways. A+ on the vocals. That's great. Drum sound really solid. Mix sounds really solid. The master sounds really clean. The only piece of critical feedback I have for this track is that the second drop section is more or less the same as the first. And I think it'd be cool if there was some sort of if the bass sound design especially shift and changed as we got back into the second section. Because I think there's a few parts where you had little bits of other bass sounds, but it was still mostly that one kind of major bass sound. That's my only real critical piece of feedback here, just because I feel like everything else sounds really solid. The drums sound really good. I'm gonna jump through to see if there's anything that I think I would change if it were me, but really I think it's pretty much ready to go. I did think that during the intro, the reverb was a little bit too heavy, but I think it works okay as a stylistic choice. Yeah, those little negative space fills are fantastic. Yeah, everything sounds great. It just makes the second drop different. And this is probably one of the better drum and bass songs I've heard in a really long time. Yeah, chat, you got any thoughts, comments, ideas, questions about this track? I'm feeling like it sounded really good. Not really much that I would change. I think maybe a melodic element could be kind of cool, especially if you're looking for a way to spice up the second drop. Some kind of cool plucky synth part, or I don't know, something that adds more of a melodic part to it. but I don't really think it's necessary. I think the vocals are really carrying a lot of the melodic stuff. For the rest of the track. But yeah, that's what I think about that track. Really, really solid work. Sweet. So I see Monty's adding one more track. We'll go ahead and listen to that real quick. But I think after that, unless anybody else adds anything else, that might be it for the stream for today. This track doesn't work. It might be the thing where it's private and you just sent me the URL as opposed to the private link. So try that and see if that works. And then just let me know once you switch it up. There we go. All right, let's check out this track.
Cause I know I get about and it's been a hot minute and I'm trying to figure out how to catch your eye when your vision's so clouded, your inbox crowded, I get no reply. Intoxicated, the thought of you smiling, and it's not fair that you're with another guy. But I don't care if I'm first in line, or second or third, cause I'll wait for time. If I wrote you a verse, would that be a crime? And my bars are rehearsed, I ain't lying, at least I put work in, you know he ain't trying, man, he don't deserve it. No, he don't deserve it. No, he don't deserve it. Be a friend, I want something more, man, and I can't pretend I adore you, but I'm just another loose end, a helping hand that'll pick up the pieces and lend you a hand till you're back on the mend. Give it a week and you're back on the benders and back to the grasp of the other contenders, rugby lads and the serial offenders. If I can't defend you, then it's time to surrender. For guess it's time to surrender. I had my eyes on you for too long. My God, I idolized you. Despite all the lies that defined you, I'm wrong, I'm not strong. Hide the cries inside for too long. With love in my eyes, yeah, I loved all the time, so it's tough to despise. And it's rough, but I'm trying. Had enough of the crying over you. Over you. I had my eyes on you for too long. Don't make my hands go loose. Moved on.
smile so wide, but you don't feel the longing that I do inside. I realise now we are all the same, just like everyone else, delusional, insane. The idea of that one, someone right, it's just a ploy to allow you to sleep at night.
What's up, Kennedy? Nice. Overall, I think it sounds really solid. I think the instrumental fits with the vocals really well. Everything kind of meshes together. It sounds really solid. But I'm hearing the same thing I heard in the last track, which is you're going a little too crazy with the reverbs. And I think in the last song, you could get away with it and it wasn't a big deal. But in this one, it's definitely detracting from the overall cohesiveness of the mix, in my opinion. So there's two places this is really taking place. Number one is in pretty much all of your vocals. There's just a little bit too much dry wet and a little bit too much decay on those reverbs. I think the reverbs themselves sound really good, and I wouldn't recommend fully getting rid of them, but I think you could tone those down quite a bit, and that'll create a lot more space in the mix, and you can hear everything a lot better. The other place is you have this very kind of like breathy reverb sweep kind of sound. Let's see if I can find it. This guy right here. It is this constant kind of rising, come back down sound. That sound, I think, number one, has a little bit too much reverb on it. And number two is a little bit too loud. I think it's just taking up a lot of space in your mix that you could actually really use to really be able to hear those vocals. So those are the main two things, that kind of breathy, risey sound, and then a little bit too much reverb across the board. Other than that, oh my God, I love reverb so much. I myself am very guilty of going way too overboard on the reverbs. Other than that, I really like your kind of like smooth electric piano chords. Those sound great. I might turn them down a tiny bit in the mix. Not a whole lot, but I think just a hair, and I think that'll make a big difference. Other than that, I think the vocals sound really solid. I do feel like your female vocalist over here gets lost in the mix a bit, so I would maybe either turn her up or compress her a little bit more.
I'm just like everyone else, delusional, insane. The idea of that one, someone right, it's just a ploy to allow you to sleep at night.
So I would turn her up, give her a little more chance to shine, because I think especially compared to the other vocalist, you can't make out her words quite as much as you can everybody else. Yeah, the rising reverb vocal thing, I think just tone that down a tiny bit. But that's basically it. I think everything else works really well. One thing I have noticed a lot is when you're somebody like me and you do go overboard with reverbs, it makes it way harder to mix. So a lot of times when I spend a lot of time when I'm mixing just dialing back the reverbs little by little till I can find that sweet spot where they are, audible and present in the mix, but not like taking over everything, because it makes your life so much more difficult when you're mixing. Let me jump around real quick to see if there's anything else I noticed, but those are the main things.
Clouded, your inbox crowded, I get no reply. Intoxicated, the thought of you smiling, and it's not fair that you're with another guy. But I don't care if I'm first in line or second or...
Yeah, especially those kind of like chorus vocals. I love them. I think they're fantastic. Bit less reverb on there, make them a lot clearer, and then potentially just make everything fit together a lot better. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling this track. I think it sounds really good. All right, we got one last track from AudioZona, but I think this is going to be the last one for the week. Appreciate all you guys coming by and hanging out and checking out the stream and sharing your tracks. I know it's sometimes can be scary to share stuff you're working on, but you guys are all awesome for doing that. I will be back on Monday for just an office hour stream. So if you want to come by and ask me questions about making music with Ableton Live, that's what that's for. If you want to help support the channel, you can hit the like button. You can subscribe if you are not already a subscriber. You can also check out the Patreon and help support the channel and me doing what I'm doing. And then, of course, I'll be back next week, same time, same place, for another feedback stream. So if you have new tracks or you want to update these tracks and then get another round of feedback, you are more than welcome to. The spreadsheet is the same every week. So if you can just click on that link and then you can put your song in early if you want to, before next Wednesday. And all these streams are uploaded to the channel as well. So if you want to check out your feedback later on, you can always do that. Nice. I think it's really cool, interesting composition. I'm digging the kind of like abstract, free-form kind of quality it has to it. And I think you have a really nice sense of like layering different interesting sounds together in ways that work together nicely. There were a couple points where you had a couple distorted sounds. I think there was one, I can't remember exactly what time it was. Thought it was around here. Maybe it was earlier. There's a few points where you had some like really kind of distorted sounds that I'm not sure exactly fit in with everything else. And there's one earlier on too. But other than that, I think the thing that feels missing to me is I think you can go a little crazier with the effects here. I noticed that a few of the sounds have like a little bit of delay on them, some maybe have some reverb on them. But I think it'd be really cool to kind of see, especially with things that are repeating, like this main kind of loopy. Oh, there's the distorted sound I was looking for. Like this thing that's kind of looping. Make it evolve over time, make it change over time. So maybe take, an effect and like gradually turn the dry wet on a distortion, or gradually turn the dry wet up on like a delay or something like that. So that when we're hearing multiple things, especially for longer periods of time, it's not just the same thing over and over again, but it's like it's shifting and changing and evolving as the landscape of the song also shifts and changes and evolves. So I think that'd be really cool. Go a little crazy with effects, and then go a little crazy automating the effects so that as we hear the same sound in different places, it's not always exactly the same. You might be doing that already, a little bit already, but I think there's more room to explore there. Other than that, I'm not sure there's too much else you could do here. I do think it'd be cool to have more kind of like, I guess you do in some places, more kind of atmospheric things going on, more kind of like chords or pads, if you wanted to go that direction with it. But I don't necessarily think that's entirely necessary because of the nature of what you're doing here. I think the big thing to me is more effects and more automation on those effects. And I think that could be a really cool way to add another layer of texture, add another layer of complication to what's already happening here. Because I like it. I think it's kind of working as a composition already. Yeah, chat. Any thoughts, ideas? Let us know in the chat. Cool. Well, I think at this point we have gotten through all of the songs in the spreadsheet. And once again, I'd like to thank you guys for submitting and sharing your tracks. That's going to be it for streaming this week. I'll be back on Monday for the office hour stream. Hope you guys have a really solid weekend. Take care of yourself. Make some music. I'm doing the 1 song a week challenge for those guys who are not aware. So I'm working on song number 2. I still need to release song number 1, but yeah, keep making new tracks. Yeah, I mean, I think like, AudioZona, the benefits of using, a digital DAW or whatever to mix is that you can always go back and change your mind about things and adjust things and tweak things to your heart's content. And with, I'm assuming, just like an actual audio mixer, especially if you're doing it live, there's much more of an element of like making sure it's perfect and everything. Whereas in digital world, you can always change your mind about things, and it makes it a lot easier to just switch things up or add new effects or change things around. Cool. That's gonna be it. See you guys. Have a good one.